The Constitution isn't having a crisis, but the Democrat Party sure as heck is. The latest video will be shown earlier at the official website, the USMilitaryNews.com. The Democrat Party is going through what can best be described as a prolonged Ann Selzer moment, in which they desperately cling to any false narrative they think will help them be relevant. In Donald Trump's golden age, Trump has the party so rocked to its core that they are incapable of behaving in a way that isn't repugnant to the vast majority of Americans. If you'll recall, Ann Selzer was the gold standard pollster who released a poll the weekend before Election Day, conveniently. Just as Kamala Harris was tanking with voters, showing Harris beating Trump by 3% in Iowa. The very same Iowa that Trump won by plus 8% in 2020 and nearly plus 10% in 2016. Based on Selzer's wildly bad numbers, Trump ended up beating Kamala by a whopping plus 13%. Democrats spent the final 3 days of the 2024 presidential election clinging for dear life to the idea that Trump was losing Iowa, which obviously meant that a Kamala landslide was in the making. Lol. There are some great compilation videos on YouTube detailing just how badly Democrats and their media lapdogs touted the Selzer poll and took embarrassingly premature victory laps. They knew better, but it's the only hope they really had at that point. Ann Selzer was much more competent than candidate Kamala, so they bet everything they had on Selzer. And they lost big time. Fast forward a few months, and the left is still wrong about everything and taking refuge in silly narratives. Not only that, they're embarrassing themselves every opportunity they get, proving time and again that American voters were right to send them into political exile. Right now, the false narrative they are pushing is, of course, constitutional crisis. Never mind the fact that not one of them questioned who was in charge during the 4 long years that dementia-riddled Joe Biden occupied the Oval Office. The fact that Donald Trump is doing what the voters sent him to do is hair on fire awful, and we're this close to seeing our country collapse. For instance, now, it's nothing new to see Democrats and legacy media spout the same talking point as if they're all taking marching orders from the same place. Because they are, and they always have. But the reason they've gone DEFCON 1 so early into Trump 2.0 is because the crisis isn't with Trump or the Constitution, it's within the Democrat Party. The fake constitutional crisis being pushed this week is meant to deflect from the fact the Democrat Party is leaderless, directionless, and in a full-blown meltdown. And Trump is exposing them more every day. Leadership who, exactly, is leading the Democrat Party right now? Chuck Schumer? Hakeem Jeffries? Maxine Waters? Kamala Harris? Traditionally, a former president would act as some sort of unifying figurehead when a party is out of power. Joe Biden is certainly in no condition to lead anything, and even if he were, his policies were garbage and firmly rejected by voters. Far from making a compelling reason to follow them, the current crew of leaders are weak, lacking in vision, ineffective, and flailing spectacularly to challenge Trump's agenda. Intra-party warring, the Democratic coalition is fracturing as radical progressives, who have forced their party way too far to the left, demand extreme policies that alienate everyday Americans. Then there are party elites who are desperate to retain some semblance of power after their electoral losses. And they really don't want their misdeeds uncovered by Elon Musk and Doge. The two sides are stepping all over each other to fill the leadership void, but both sides are extremely repugnant to everyday Americans. And the Democrats don't seem to know that, or they just don't care. Even their own side doesn't like or trust them, as the numbers show rank and file Democrats are tuning into Fox News in droves to get their news. All of that is so 2024. Now that Trump is working to undo the mess Democrats helped create, the country is in a crisis. What the left seems determined not to recognize is that we all know they themselves have pushed unconstitutional policies for years. It could be called ironic if it wasn't so pathetic. When they controlled the White House, they went to war against the American people by weaponizing the Justice Department, ignoring Supreme Court rulings they didn't like, and cheering when blue state governors defied the Constitution with lockdowns and other leftist nonsense. And now they're crying foul? Too bad. The latest video will be shown earlier at the official website, the USMilitaryNews.com.